All right, welcome to Real Raw Health with your hosts, Nikki Burnett of Taste Life Nutrition and Matt Rowe of Parsley Pet. During our show, we are talking about your pet's health, raw feeding, and the health our pets bring to us with love. And Nikki and I always dabble into a little bit of human health as well because we're both healthy. She's a functional nutritionist and I'm a health coach, and we just start geeking out about food a little bit too much, but
Yeah,
that's all right. That's what makes us healthy. So, Nikki,
that's who we
welcome
are.
to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited about this one because we all know those who have had the stinky dog. If it's not us who have
Yes.
had the stinky dog, we know those who have had the
Sorry,
stinky dog.
I'm
Yeah,
guilty of stinky dog. Yes.
I know.
I mean, even last night we were laying in bed, my wife and I, and our Chihuahua came up to us and he breathed on us. And I know we did a one on teeth yesterday, but we're smelling. We're like, who's up for giving him a bath? Like,
Yeah,
this is like at a point, why are we letting him in bed? This is terrible. But no,
it's
of
so true.
course, we slept with him and
Uh-huh.
maybe woke up a little stinky ourselves. But
Yeah, yeah.
oh well.
There's nothing that says you can't wash the sheets every other day.
No, there's nothing. That's why God made washing machines. So,
That's right.
yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
So, Nikki, why does my dog smell? Why
Oh
why is
man.
he smelling so bad?
So there's so many reasons, which is always, it's kind of, when we work with our own, human clients, right? We're playing that little bit of detective. And so, I tend to go, really, really deep in looking, but with dogs, sometimes you have to go really deep, but sometimes you just start to pay attention. You smell their ears, you smell their breath, you smell the folds in their skin for those that have it. This is going to come off kind of funny, but I mean, I'm not going to say you smell their butt, but if you smell their butt, like unintentionally,
Yeah,
so
you know what? We're
yeah,
professionals. Like, this is what we have to do. Okay. We do it
there's
to our kids. We do it to, our dogs. This is just the way it is.
what I would tell you is don't actually smell their butt. I just think that's probably not okay. But but either they're farty or gassy, right? Same thing, or they have anal glands, so those could be, a problem. So I think that there are lots of different things that can be a problem.
Mhm.
And so we need to determine what it is. And then that's when we start digging a little bit is why is it smelly? Is it internal or external? Is there an infection? And so we can, go through all of these different things that they could be, but, we kind of want to do an overall, what's going on with my dog? And then, kind of go from there. So I know I've talked about this before, but my little Daisy, who had such bad teeth because she was shot in the face,
Right.
it broke all of her teeth, and she had terrible infections and just lost teeth. It was awful, and she smelled terrible, and I knew it. I mean, I knew it was coming from, but
Right.
what can you do when you can't, give a dog a dental or because she's got heartworms. So you
Yeah.
work through that. You got to do what you can do. But um, yeah, I mean, lots of
So,
things going on there.
something you think about is with, let's just go after food because that's what you and I are both passionate about,
Yep.
is, looking at it from that spectrum. I notice, like, for example, when I eat a lot of garlic, I start to smell the garlic when I work out in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and I can get whiffs. So do you think some of that is happening with our dogs, is what they're eating maybe coming out in their, well, of course, through their breath, but also maybe in their sweat, or maybe in something else that's coming in, or in the anal glands, or in something of that, or maybe it's just coming out in the skin very slowly. Could it be due to something that they're eating?
Well, yeah. And so is it, just coming out, I mean, we know that they don't sweat, but what, with the food that they're eating. So as we know with kibble, if
Mhm.
you listen to this, these Facebook lives even once, you know that we are entirely against kibble. It's too high in
Mhm.
carbohydrates. There's nothing good about kibble. So when we're
Correct.
feeding kibble, or even if we are trying to feed raw, we're learning how to feed raw. A lot of people feed raw and they feed rice. They feed lots of sweet potatoes. It's these
Mhm.
high carbohydrate foods that dogs don't do well with. And so I think those things can create things like yeast infections. Yeast infections can happen in the feet. It can happen in the folds of the skin. It can happen in the nose and in the ears. And, they can be itchy and red and inflamed and all of these things. But we think we're doing the best that we can by them. But there is a problem with an overgrowth of yeast. And I think, which, can also lead back to if we're feeding the wrong foods, then they have a problem with the wrong bacteria growing in their gut. So they may have bad breath because of their teeth, because of eating bad food, but they can also have bad breath because of their gut dysfunction. Just like us, right? They can have gut dysfunction and dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in gut bacteria, just like we do. And it's going to make them smelly, whether it's their mouth or their butt. Their poops can be smellier, their farts can be way smellier. And then what else? Those are kind of the big, those are the things, ear infections. I think I said that, but those are sort of the big things that can create just kind of that nasty smell. Yeast smells really musty and sort of cheesy. It's not a good smell. We should be able to stick our nose in our dog, and especially if everybody loves their dogs. My hope is that they have dogs, they love their dogs, and you want to bury your face in them. And I love the smell of my dogs. They all have a little bit of a unique smell, and they smell good to me. But I know when they don't smell good, right? And I know when they smell dirty, just like you said. We know those smells, and when something's off, you can smell it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, so that's really interesting that you started to touch on gut microbiota, because really that bacteria that's in our stomach is, promoting our health. What you're saying at some point too is that having a good gut microbiota and the good bacteria in our stomachs is setting up, and, whatever it does in there is keeping, or it's eating the smelly bacteria, or it's keeping bad bacteria from growing as it regulates. And as you said, is if they're in dysbiosis, which is a lack of good bacteria in their stomachs, this could lead to a smelly coat, or just that funk. Dogs have.
So what happens is we have our microbiome. So we've got our good bugs that control all of the other bugs. That's what it has they're a huge part of our immune system. They're a huge part of our mental and our emotional health for us and for dogs too. If we have a dog who is aggressive, it could be that their microbiome is out of balance. If we have a dog who's anxious, it could be their microbiome's out of balance. But if it is out of balance, if they're dysbiotic, it can allow for either opportunistic or pathogenic bacteria and yeast to proliferate. So opportunistic being those that are like yeast. We all have a certain amount of yeast. Dogs, us, it's normal, it's natural. But they're opportunistic. And so if the good bugs are too low, then they have the ability to thrive. Then we have the bugs that are just pathogenic. And those are the bugs that aren't supposed to be there. And if the good bugs aren't in high enough numbers, then they're not able to control the proliferation of the pathogenic bacteria. And so that can create a whole bunch of issues right there as well. So we have to have that good, healthy microbiome. And for dogs, if we're not supplementing with probiotics, which I think that we should, because they're not getting it in their regular food. And let me tell you, even if you see it on a package of hard food, you're looking at your list and all these things look great and it's still kibble. And at the end of it, the last thing says, and it's got lactobacillus in it. BS. You can't, the lactobacillus cannot thrive in a form like that. It cannot go through heat. It is a marketing gimmick. It's a joke, and it's pathetic and sad, and it makes me angry.
And this is when you start to study like what is actually in kibble, because it does have a level of grain in it because it's of all the carbohydrates they're using. Just read the package. Corn, wheat, they'll have all that stuff in it. Now, when you throw in that they spray glyphosate, which is herbicide, on
Mhm.
all of our food that's actually conventionally grown. And that's what they're putting in kibble. Glyphosate actually was created originally back in the 50s as an antibacterial agent. And so now when they spray it on our grains twice before harvest, at the time of planting and also at the 2 weeks before they actually pick the harvest, they'll spray glyphosate again, aka Roundup,
Yep.
on the actual grains that we have, which is an antibacterial agent. And then we're feeding that to our dog. Then how can good bacteria grow if we are constantly 3 times, 2 times a day feeding them kibble and
Mhm.
it's killing their bacteria that they have?
Yeah, you gotta remember if it's outside. So glyphosate, well, at least now, is typically used as an herbicide, but it's both the pesticides and the herbicides. If it kills living organisms, right? And so weeds are living organisms, bacteria living organisms, pests living organisms, we're living organisms. If
Mhm.
it kills them, it's a killer no matter what the organism. And
Right.
so it's so frustrating when there are those who believe that adding these amounts of pesticides and herbicides to our food
It's
is
safe.
okay and it's safe. For the love of Pete,
Of course.
how is that possible when we eat
Right.
every day for our entire lives? For us, for our dogs. The other thing that I think about, it's a little off topic, but I can't help it. We go and say we go to Kansas, right? So my husband's from Kansas. There's lots of deer. We've got we always we like to fill our freezer with good, healthy, grass-fed
Mhm.
meat, game meat. And
Yeah.
what are they eating though on these farmlands? It breaks my heart. And I think
Corn.
about this and I'm like, well, it's the corn, it's the wheat, it's the soy. Those are the biggest crops out there,
Right.
all genetically modified and
Yep.
high in pesticides and herbicides.
Right.
It's really hard. It hurts my heart it makes me, I mean, we don't get much deer out there anymore. I would rather go to the hills of Colorado where I
Mhm.
know they're not dealing with that kind of stuff. There's elk in the mountains, deer in the mountains. Anyway, so
Yeah.
these are the things, as we talk about, our focus is always the dogs and the dog food and what they should eat and feeding them properly. But it's such a big topic and it can go in so many different directions and not everybody thinks of this stuff.
No.
It's a little bit
And
daunting.
that's what's it's crazy.
Hmm.
But I'm going to go back to why we feed raw, because yes, you can say that the animal that your dog is eating, cow, duck, um, pork, whatever it is, yes, those animals are going to receive a level of glyphosate. It is a hell of a lot less than the glyphosate that you're going to get from grain. So, and especially with a grain-free diet, you look at garbanzo beans and lentils have the highest levels of Roundup and glyphosate in it. And this is a show that I did with Dr. Judy, is we looked at DCM. In DCM, it's not that the fact that they're eating a grain or a grain-free diet, it's the fact that they're eating a higher level of glyphosate now, which is stopping the absorption. And so, which is starting to get DCM to happen. So, when you're looking at all these little health issues that pop up inside of our animals, yes, it is directly due to what they're eating. I mean, down from, we started the show just talking about why does my dog smell? And just from a smelling side, you're seeing
Mhm.
like the first incidences of a lack of homeostasis inside your dog, and homeostasis meaning balanced health
Balance. Mhm.
in all of those areas. And so you're seeing that start to show up in smell. So you smell as an indicator is my dog eating the right food? Are they actually getting the proper amount of nutrients inside their body? And is their body able to create the good bacteria that actually keeps that smell from happening? I noticed it with my puppies too. Yes, I started the story with Bob, Mr. Chacha getting in bed last night and having him smell.
Mhm.
I really think that that dog got into something because normally he doesn't smell. Yes, his breath is awful for being a 14-year-old dog because he won't eat bones. He won't, self clean all
Mhm.
this stuff up. And that's okay. But
Mhm.
on it is, yes, we feed raw. And yes, we go through these moments. And yes, I know he smelled bad because he got into something,
Right.
not
Right.
because of something that he ate, which is long-term perpetuating just funk that your dog has. And you think about it is due to the inflammation that a normal dog has that is on kibble, and then the amount of glyphosate and other toxins that are in their body, I believe is the cause of why your dog may just have a funk on him, where they didn't roll in goose poop or they didn't roll in poop of some sort, or they weren't out digging in the yard or anything that would cause a different smell, more of I would call an organic nature smell. That sometimes those are terrible and awful. But at some point is when you work so hard to keep them clean. And then, like, let's say you give them a bath and then 12 hours later you smell them again and they have that funk.
Yeah.
Take a look at the diet. Take a
Yeah.
look at what you're feeding them and how you're promoting them through, and they're, helping them get their guts in order and getting the bacteria established, because that is the and I think it's something we don't pay attention to here in the United States as much as I think we should, is that I think it's a big start to our health is having a good gut microbiome.
Mhm. Yeah, it's true. And so it's, there are lots of things, we see in ourselves a lot of times, especially, when I work with clients, we can look at genetics and we can see the inability to detoxify certain things, particularly pesticides and herbicides. We can actually see when somebody might have the potential for the inability to detoxify properly. And we got to remember that genetics or epigenetics is the potential, right? And so we're doing a lot of this study in humans, but as far as I know, I've not heard of any of this study in animals, or particularly in dogs, since that's what we talk about. But why would it not be the same? They have an epigenome just as we do. They're going to have SNPs, or for lack of a better word, mutations in their epigenome, just like we will. So if they're unable to detoxify properly, and so we're not feeding them the foods that they should get, they're biologically appropriate. They're not raw, which is what they should get, which is what they would get in the wild. And then on top of it, it's the toxins that are in our water, the toxins that are in their food, and so forth. Then they may not have the ability to detoxify properly. Dogs also have the potential for leaky gut. If you don't know what leaky gut is when the cells of the gut come apart. The cells are supposed to be super, super tight together, because we don't want things getting through too soon. They're supposed to get through, at the very end. And if it's these cells can open up either in the cell itself can open up, or each cell between cells can open up. And so this can allow for food and microbes and whatever else might be in the gut, large food particles, to get into the bloodstream too soon, which then the body doesn't recognize. It's like, you're not supposed to be there yet. Why are you there? So it creates an immune response, an inflammatory response, leads to oftentimes autoimmune disease. I would say pretty much most diseases. And so this can be cancer, right? We see cancer just through the roof. I mean, it's and what's your stat that you say? I think you should say it again.
50% of dogs over the age of 10 will die of cancer.
It's maddening and heartbreaking.
And when you talk to Dr. Judy, who is the cancer vet in the United States, she says, Matt, 2/3 are being diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah. And why is that? It truly is because a lot of it is because of the food that we feed them. And I'm going to say it. I say it once, I'll say it a million times. It's not necessarily, it's not our fault as the parents or caretakers, because we have been fed an ass load of BS when it comes to what we should feed our animals. And this is why we do what we do, because we're freaking fighting back. I mean, we're talking about your animal's epigenome. What we've done is we've taken dogs who should live to be 25 to 30 years old, and cats and other animals as well who aren't being fed properly. And we've decreased their lifespan. And now we're excited if they hit 14. We're excited if they hit 10. 10, they're geriatric and know they had a good life. I don't think
That's
so.
midlife.
No. Yeah. Yeah. There's no effing way. It just makes me crazy. And so
Mhm.
bring it down. Back to back to the leaky gut. We have to pay attention to what's going on with their dog. What is their
Mhm.
disease status, or what is their health status? And
Mhm.
we might need to do some supplementation that allows them to get their gut back in order. We might need to do some
Right.
supplementation that allows them to detoxify properly. And
Mhm.
so, we don't want to go. So I'm going to say this, but there's a caveat. What I was going to say is we don't want to go and get a bunch of human supplements and start giving it to our dogs, because
Mhm.
we don't always know what their nutrient needs are unless we're, deep into the research.
Right.
So there are some good dog supplements. I think most of them are trash, but there are some good dog supplements. But I will feed human supplements depending on what it is. So the two
Sure.
dog supplements that I give are in periodic. It's not all the time, but I give a periodic multivitamin, and it's a
Mhm.
dog multivitamin, and I give a
Sure.
periodic liver support. And so
Mhm.
little Daisy she was just spayed, and so I've been giving her liver support for the past 2-3 weeks now, just to
That's smart.
help clear her of all the drugs, all the
Yep.
anesthetic, and all of the stuff that she had to deal with in her little body. We would
Yeah.
do the same thing for ourselves.
hmm And this is, when we take care of ourselves, at the same time, we should think about taking care of our dogs, because they don't have opposable thumbs. They can't take the
Mhm.
choice. They can't jump in the car and go to oh, yeah, I was thinking about getting this vitamin supplement because my stomach's been upset. No, they just
Mhm.
live. They live in the moment, and we have to help them live in that moment.
It's
So,
true.
yes,
Mhm.
feeding raw, thinking about how you are supporting. So I love that you're supporting her liver,
Mhm.
because you look at detoxification of liver, and it doesn't take a lot to do that. Take
Mhm.
some intentionality, and it's just little steps. Like even feeding raw, it's not overly complicated. It's just
Mhm.
intentional that
It
this is what
is.
we're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, we intentionally feed ourselves. My dogs eat at the same time we eat. If I'm cooking for us, I'm preparing for them, because they don't cook their meals. I'm preparing pretty much all at the same time. And
Right.
it's a little bit of it's a habit change. I deal with people, I've got friends, I've got clients, all of these who are, it can feel a little overwhelming at first, but when I'm working with clients who are just working on themselves, it can feel overwhelming because it's change can be overwhelming, but once you start to create the habit, you're like, not so hard. I feed 3 medium-sized dogs in under 10 minutes. If I bet it's closer to 5, as long as
Yeah.
I have the meat thawed.
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
that's what me.
Prep it accordingly, but you see the benefits every day. Your
Every day.
dogs don't stink. They, like you said, you had mentioned, they all have a good smell to them.
Mhm.
They're soft, and their coats are
Mhm.
soft. They're
Yeah.
healthy, and their
Mhm.
eyes don't have the discharge coming out. They don't have the bad breath.
Mhm.
You can see that they're thriving in this environment,
Mhm.
and that joy that it brings to us, that they're just happy and they're being their puppy selves and they're all that stuff, is enough of a reward for me to
Yeah.
spend the extra few minutes it takes to feed them or prep their food for the week or do all that kind of stuff, because I
Mhm.
know they're getting better,
Yeah.
and I know their lives are going to live longer, and no, we have no idea what's going to happen to any one of our puppies, but on it, I want to give them the best opportunity to thrive as I can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we want for ourselves. What we want for our kids and our families. We should all have that opportunity. And just because they're animals, we're animals, but we just have, the ability to reason. And we
Right.
also have the ability to care for those around us who don't have the ability to care for themselves as well. Right. And
So
so
well said.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's a decision. It's a decision. And we bring kids into the world, we bring dogs into our families, and or whatever animal you might have, in order to give them the best that we possibly can. And I think it's our duty. I think it's our duty to care for cows who are used as food. We
Mhm.
keep them on grass. We don't put them in feedlots and feed them trash that they're not supposed to eat.
Mhm.
We take care of them because they take care of us. And so, animals are amazing. I mean, they're the most amazing gift that God gave us, as far as I'm concerned. And I know I'm not the only one, but I know other people don't agree, and that's okay. But they are the most amazing creatures. And
Mhm.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
here to take care of them the best we can.
And like you said in the show, is you hunt, you go out there, you fill your freezer, you do that. But there's a point where you hold the animal that you hunted sacred,
Right.
that
Absolutely.
this is a blessing. This is
Mhm.
something, and you give thanks in that moment. And just like our puppies, we give thanks to them every day. We give thanks to our children. We give thanks to those around us that bring us joy in our lives. And there isn't, I mean, there's frustration that comes with both my puppies, but there's also a lot of joy as well. So, Nikki, thank you so much for today's show. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fun.
what is the best way somebody can get a hold of you?
So everywhere, Taste Life Nutrition. So whether it's the website or the social media, just Taste Life Nutrition. I try to keep it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Or the radio show, Taste Life Radio. So that one's kind of fun. And then we have just launched sort of the beginning of the course. It's really just a free, we went from a 5-day challenge to a 7-day challenge. And so this
Yeah.
is a course that is a human course, but it's intended to help people understand their own bodies. It's intended to empower people to learn who they are, who their body is, instead of just sort of, sitting on the sidelines and not understanding, what their body's telling them. So this is, it's been a labor of love, and it's been a long time coming, but we're almost ready to entirely launch the course, and I'm super excited about it.
So I'm gonna give a little shout out for the 7-day trial that Nikki put out. I signed up for it, went through it, and I was like, I'm a health coach. I'm like, what am I gonna get from this? This is really cool. And so this is where, to the entire audience on Facebook, I'm gonna get a little vulnerable.
I
So
loved it.
when I told Nikki before the show, so something that happens with me when I sleep at night is I sweat. Yay. It's one of those things. I have no idea why it
Uncomfortable.
happens. And it pisses the hell out of me. Like, you wake up and you're like, why did this happen? It's like I go to bed. It's not like, oh, I'm running a marathon. It's not like I go to bed and I'm like got tons of covers on me. There are no covers. And some
No.
reason my body's just like, hey, he's asleep. We should start sweating now. And
Mm.
so I had no
You
idea
get
why
rid
it
of
caused
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
So on Nikki's course, and I fill out the questionnaire that she has at the beginning. And there is a thing in there that says, do you have night sweats? And of course, I click yes. And I'm thinking, could it be sugar that is causing this? And I never even thought about that before. So I cut sugar out of my diet yesterday. Last night was the best night's sleep I've ever had. And I
Love it.
slept all the way through the night. I didn't want to wake up with my alarm clock, and I didn't sweat last night. And I'm like,
Yay.
holy
Holy
shit,
smoke.
is it sugar? So now I am eliminating sugar after
Awesome.
6 p.m. and I'm going to work on eliminating sugar. I'll work on this really hard, Nikki, because I have
You
a
can
bad
do it.
addiction to it.
You can do
I'll
it.
work on eliminating sugar on the rest of the time of my day, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed.
Baby steps.
This, I'm a believer, and I'm like, oh, this is possibly the greatest advice I've ever received. And so this is what I received from going to Nikki's course.
Um,
This is what just 7 days free has gotten me, and I'm hooked. So
Thank you.
definitely go
Thank
check out
you.
our course, sign up for the 7-day free trial. There are some awareness points that you will see through it. And I'm a big believer, and I'm a big fan of Nikki's. So
Thank you.
definitely
Yeah.
go into the course and take the next steps with it. So Taste Life Nutrition, definitely make that happen. You can also,
So
if you're ever well, go ahead. You were going to say something.
sorry. Yeah, real quick. I don't want anybody to think that, so you can't jump into the one right now because we're in the middle of it, but we're going to start another challenge on November 9th.
There you go,
So
November 9th.
watch out for that. And, we'll get that going. But I want to just make a quick comment, because what you did is exactly what I want people to be able to do. I want you to be able to take this course and mold it to who you are, right? So this is just a challenge. The course itself is 12 weeks, but the intent is that you you learn about you and you mold the course to yourself because you're not everybody else. And I might have already just said that, but that's, I feel it's unique in that way because you're unique. And that's what I'm wanting people to see and to get out of it.
That's awesome. So thank you for pointing me in that direction.
Yeah,
And once again, huge fan. So you can always follow us at parsleypet.com, have the nutritional blueprint done. If you ever wondered, is my dog getting the right amount of nutrients? I started a raw diet, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. Have a nutritional blueprint completed. And I can tell you with accuracy at parts per billion at how close you are getting that diet dialed in. So definitely parsleypet.com. We'd love to see you over there. So Nikki, thank you so much for today's show. It's been awesome.
Thank you. And I want to add to what you said about Parsley Pet because, I hear stories a lot about, we can't figure out what's going on. My dog all of a sudden can't hold her urine, or my dog all of a sudden, she does smell, and I've done all these things and I can't figure out why, or they can't get the yeast infection to go away. And I've tried all of the things. This is when, your kit, your lab, sorry, it comes in a kit. Is just where I am in my profession. I just always call them kits, but, yeah, it's always the first place to go if you want to and you choose to, because the more data you have about yourself, about your dogs, about everything, the better the better life you can give them, the better food you can give them, the better knowledge that you have to give them everything they need.
Yep.
But, when you're dealing with things that are unexplained, when you can't figure it out, don't throw your hands up and get discouraged, because there are always more options. And this is an amazing option. You always want to get a good comprehensive metabolic panel on your dog or your animal. You always want to understand how the body's functioning. But a lab like Parsley Pet, where you can really look at the nutrients, the toxicity, in all of, the micronutrients, all of the things put together, and then have a consultation with a functional medicine vet to tell you what this means and then how to better feed your dog, even if you're already feeding raw. You can't get any better than that. You just really, really can't. And I come across this, a good bit, I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do. Go to Parsley Pet because this is your next step if you don't know what to do.
Oh, you're so sweet, Nikki. That is awesome. Yes, we'd love to see you over here. And love to help out as much as we can. So thank you again for the show today. Absolutely awesome. Thank you for putting the challenge together and the awareness you've given me.
Perfect. Good stuff. I like it. No more sweating. Woo!
I hope. Yeah, I'll let you know. Well, I'm sorry. You're on my speed dial list on. This happened again.
Good.
All right, Nikki, you are awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching us today. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.